Not only is former two-division UFC champion Henry Cejudo not retiring, but now he's got his sights set on a new weight class, and I'm going to talk about why I think that's a bad idea in this video. My name is James Lynch. So first and foremost, Henry Cejudo loses a pretty decisive decision to Merab Dvalishvili on the last UFC event, UFC 298, and doesn't retire, even though prior to the fight, it appeared that that was going to be the case. Win or lose, Henry Cejudo was going to retire from the sport. He's done more than enough. He's got a great resume, great record, everything else. But it seemed like, the perfect opportunity for him to hang them up. And I think with the way that fight went, where it was not really competitive after the second round, I think it kind of showed like, hey, maybe, Cejudo isn't once what he was. And you figured, okay, no issues with him retiring, but he mentions that he's not going to unretire. So a lot of people were wondering what's the next step. Well, we got a glimpse of that this weekend when he calls out Brandon Moreno wanting to fight him at UFC 306 at the Sphere, which we know is going to be a big event for the UFC, their first event at that venue. Everyone knows about the Sphere. It's a huge deal to host an event there. So Cejudo wants to be part of that. And I know there's been some people out there being like, wow, great idea. But I don't know. I don't think this is a great idea for Henry Cejudo for a couple different reasons. The first and foremost reason is the fact that Henry Cejudo right now is 37 years old. There's very few fighters who can move down a weight class and have success. Now, Cejudo, again, has fought at flyweight before. In fact, you could argue he's had most of his success in that weight class. That's where he started his UFC career. But if you remember his UFC career, he actually had trouble making 125. I think a lot of people forget that. There was the fight with Damasio Page, which was supposed to take place in Legacy. Cejudo withdrew. I think there was a weight cut issue there. The Brian Hall fight was supposed to be at 125, withdrew there. Scott Jorgensen, his UFC debut, he had medical issues related to a weight cut, and then had his first UFC fight at bantamweight. It wasn't at flyweight. It was after that, the Carriazo fight, Chico Camus, Yusuf Formiga. These were all at flyweight, and then obviously had a pretty good flyweight career overall. And then obviously moved up to 135 to fight Marlon Moraes when he won the flyweight title, or defended his flyweight title, I should say, after defeating Demetrius Johnson and knocking out TJ Dillashaw. That's what I was trying to get at. So he's primarily fought at flyweight, but his last time making 125 was back in January of 2019. That's, 4 years ago. That's a really long time that we've seen him in that weight class. And I don't have the data in front of me, but there aren't that many fighters as they get older do better moving down a weight class. The only one that comes to mind, maybe Frankie Edgar, but again, he was pretty much in the wrong weight class most of his career. Jose Aldo's another one that I know has had a bit of success moving down to bantamweight from featherweight, but most fighters that move down a weight class do not have success. So even though Cejudo, like I just mentioned there, had a lot of his success at 125, I think him making the cut at this stage of his career at his age, I think it's going to be a tough task. And the other thing is, how's he going to look at 125? He looked good way back then when he fought Dillashaw, in 2019, and I think Dillashaw cut too much weight. That's part of the reason why he got knocked out. But again, like you just look at Cejudo in that last fight, Merab looked a little bit faster. You're probably going to lose some speed if you're cutting that much weight fighting a Brandon Moreno there. And let's talk about Brandon Moreno as well, the guy he called out. Brandon Moreno, now a former champion, right? Lost his belt to Alexander Pantoja in July last year, as I'm spelling Moreno wrong, but Google help me out here. You can see there, lost his title to Pantoja, and then lost I think a winnable fight against Brandon Royval last weekend, and it's nothing against Moreno. All the credit to him for getting the win here. But I didn't see a lot of people picking Brandon Royval. I thought, most felt like Moreno would be able to do what he always does and just outwork his opponent and take a decision. And he didn't do that. He lost. It was split, but I think Royval, in my opinion, won that fight anyways. I thought he won 3, 4, and 5. I thought Brandon Royval won that fight. So Brandon Moreno's stock is about as low as it could be right now, outside of him getting finished in a fight. But like he really needs to, reinvent himself and get back in the contender spot with 2 straight losses, right? I think that's, kind of a big thing here. And I think flyweight right now is kind of back to where it was, which is I don't think a lot of people care that much about the division, as bad as that sounds, right? Like Alexander Pantoja, we don't know who he's going to fight in his title defense at the time we're recording this. You've also, you've got a couple like interesting up and comers. You got Mohamed Mokaev. Manel Kopp looked like a promising prospect in that weight class, but he missed weight in his last fight. So flyweight right now, maybe not the most popular division right now. And then you add in the fact that Moreno and Figueroa fought each other, 4 times, something like that. So that also hurt the division as well. So if Cejudo's moving down and trying to do maybe a money fight matchup, yes, they're both Mexican. And I'm sure, that's the idea, is the Sphere would be sort of a Mexican Independence Day card, and that would be a big deal. I just wonder, like, is it worth it for Cejudo at this point? Because again, he's got to cut a lot of weight and he's got to fight a guy in Brandon Moreno who's tough to finish. And honestly, if Cejudo can make the weight and look fine, I think it's a winnable fight for him. But I just wonder if like he's really thinking about the fact that flyweight's just not an it division right now. I just wonder what Cejudo's trying to accomplish at this point. I guess kind of the point of this is that I just don't see a reason for Cejudo to try and, you know, win a title again. I just don't think it's really worth it for him at 37. Like, he would need to beat Moreno and then he'd probably need to beat someone else. And then we're talking about him being 38 the year after and him competing for a title. I just don't think it's going to go that well. And also, what's one of the big reasons Cejudo retired in the first place, right? Remember him retiring after the fight with Dominic Cruz? It was a money thing. He wanted to get paid well. Well, I just don't think, I mean, you're picking a division where I think you could argue that fighters are probably not as popular as some of the fighters in the higher weight classes. And kind of what I'm getting at is, I don't think it's going to be a big payday for Cejudo at this point. Like, I just wonder what the motive is here. Like, he's had a great career. He's won 2 titles. I just don't think this is the right move for him right now, you know, as far as doing that. And then I've heard some other people suggest go the opposite direction. Him fight, you know, like a Volkanovski at 145. But the problem is Volkanovski, I think, needs to take a ton of time off. By the time, you know, Cejudo wants to fight, maybe he's out of the sport by then. I don't know. But I just think that, like, this isn't a good option either. I don't think him going down to flyweight really makes a ton of sense right now. It makes sense for the UFC, right? Like, you've got Cejudo and Moreno. That would be a very big fight for the Sphere. I just wonder, where does Cejudo's career go from here? Let's say, like I said, he makes the weight and he wins the fight. He's still going to need another fight to get in there. Maybe he wins that, but it's just like you're trying to go on another title run in a different division. It just seems very tough right now. And I think at bantamweight, he doesn't have a strong case either because of the fact that he lost a pretty decisive fight to Merab. The Sterling fight was close. I think you could have even made an argument that he could have beat Sterling at 135, but you know, with him losing to Merab, it's very clear he's not a contender at bantamweight right now. But saying that, going down to 125, I think is only going to hurt him even more trying to go back down to that weight class. So, I mean, just my personal opinion, I think Cejudo should just hang it up. He seems like he's got a pretty good YouTube channel. I think he'd be a great commentator for the UFC. They seem to be going back to Mexico City a lot, do the guest fighter spot, run your gym. And, you know, you're a dad now too. I just don't see the upside here for Cejudo fighting. And I think far too often in MMA, we see fighters stick around too much. Now, look, Cejudo's not even close to some of the other names you're probably thinking of right now, fighters that get finished later in their career. You know, Fedor Emelianenko comes to mind, right? Fedor's a great fighter. Unfortunately, newer fans look at him as this guy who's been knocked out a bunch of times. But if you'd watch Fedor in his prime during Pride, he was the best heavyweight in the world. I mean, arguably one of the best heavyweights of all time. So, you know, I'm not saying Cejudo is going down that path, but decisions like this, you do wonder, you know, what is he going to look like as he's cutting all that weight and trying to make the weight, you know, at 125. So that's kind of all I'm wondering here. Is this the right move? I think Cejudo should just hang him up. I think him coming out of retirement was also kind of a bad idea because it didn't work out. You know, had he beat Sterling and won his title back, then yeah, that would be a different story. And there could have been a fight with him and O'Malley and all these other things. I mean, who knows what would have happened, you know, had Henry got the nod against Aljamain Sterling. He wouldn't have had to fight Merab right away, I don't think. You know, he probably could have fought O'Malley. That would have been a big fight, but he misses out on that. And I think the mistake from Cejudo was fighting Merab. I think maybe he underestimated him a little bit. Merab decisively won that fight. And then now Cejudo's trying to chase a title in a different weight class, which I think he could be successful. I just don't know if it's like financially lucrative for him at this point. Like, and I don't really know what he needs to prove. He's already won the flyweight title. It just like what more does he need to do here? I don't really get it. And I just think it's a bad idea. Like the title of the video says, I think this is a bad idea for Henry Cejudo to continue his career when he's got so much going on outside the cage. And I just don't see a need for him to try and make a run against a guy, like I said, in Moreno, whose stock has gone down big time with him losing 2 fights now. So that's just sort of my thoughts on that. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you have interest in Cejudo moving down and trying to make a run for the flyweight title at this point? Do you want to see him keep fighting? Am I out to lunch here? I would love to hear your opinion here. I just think for Cejudo, he's accomplished so much. What more do you need to accomplish? I think George St. Pierre did it right. He won the middleweight title, he retired, and he never looked back. I don't think it was going to get better for St. Pierre going forward. The same way I don't think it's going to be that much better for Cejudo going forward. Yeah, he could go down and beat Brandon Moreno, but then after that, who knows? I mean, Pantoja looks pretty legit, and again, Cejudo, I have worries about him making 125. So that's kind of my thoughts on him. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. If there's any other topics you want me to discuss, I've been putting a couple videos out here today. It's just whatever comes to mind. So if you guys have some stuff you want me to chat about, let me know in the comments. Love to always make these videos. So let me know what you think. And I'll talk to you guys soon.